We are in the week 2 of a message series that we have been calling In the Beginning. And this series has us looking at the book of Genesis this summer. As we discussed last week, the book of Genesis contains stories that tell us all about our beginnings. We also said last week that it can be difficult for us to understand the book of Genesis. We walked through some of those challenges, such as other creation stories, history, and science. When we looked at other creation stories, we saw that there is no problem because God uses those other creation stories to reveal the truth about himself. History is part of Genesis, but it is ancient history. It is history-like, but totally true. We also discussed that it is not intended to be a scientific account. If you want to look into this more, I encourage you to visit our website, holyeucharist.org, and listen to last week's message. Last week, I invited you to read the first chapter of Genesis. It may seem like just a story to read with no application, but actually there's a role for us to play in the creation story. For some of you who really know me, there are two things in my life that I am a perfectionist about. The first is evident. It is what I am doing right now, celebrating the Eucharist. And that always spills over into anything liturgical. It is important for me and for the liturgy to be well planned and things be in order. Liturgical celebrations have to flow prayerfully and orderly for me. And second to that is the loading of the dishwasher. If I open the dishwasher drawer and there are dishes, glasses, pots, and pans, not in a certain way, I immediately begin to move them around into what looks like some type of order. I can't turn on the dishwasher until I see that. Now, you may not have this particular blessing of being a perfectionist with your dishwasher, but we can all understand the idea of place, that there is a proper place and order for our things. There is a place and an order for us as well. Where do we fit? Where is our proper place? What part are we supposed to play? Well, Genesis is going to tell us about our proper place in creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. I know we read this last week, but let's take it apart a little bit. Notice how God is the subject of the first sentence. The Bible is about God. The story is about God. Creation is about God. This is not about science, but talking about God. When we hear God created, the word created comes from the Hebrew word bara. God is the only subject of that verb because God is the only one who creates. We can innovate, mold, form, shape, build back up, adapt, tear down, modify, but only God creates. As we read before creation, The earth was formless and empty. These two descriptors are important because they imply that there is no order or stuff. And through the rest of the chapter, we are going to see what happens to these conditions, formless and empty. Also notice that we see the Trinity involved in creation right in those first verses. We see the Spirit of God, we see God the Creator, and we see the Word revealed to us in the Gospel of John in the New Testament as the Son. Let's continue. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. Here we start to see the clear structure and cadence to the creation story. There is a repetitive rhythm with God speaking, creating, declaring it good, and the day ending. And this continues with each of the next 5 days. This is a clear structure that's communicating a message of forming and filling. God is taking a formless and empty world, and he is forming and filling. That's what he does. The first 3 days of the creation story are about forming, separating the light from the darkness, the sea from the sky, the dry land from the water. The next 3 days are about filling the world with the lights in the sky, creatures of the water, air and creatures of land. The world is formed and filled. That's what God does. What can we learn so far? God created everything. Creation is good. Creation is ordered. Everything is in its proper place. After hearing of all that is created, you have to ask the question, what about us? We're special. What is our place? So here we go. And God said, "Let us make humankind in our image and according to our likeness. And let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of heaven and over the cattle and over all the earth and over every moving thing that moves upon the earth." So we do have a special place. We are made in the image and likeness of God. We bear God's image. We are given full dominion and rule over every living thing. We are given to rule not harshly, but as stewards. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it." God blessed us. And we have been given an important job to be fruitful and multiply. So we are special. God speaks to man. He doesn't speak to any other part of the creation except us. We do have a special place, a proper place over the rest of creation. When you think about that, that is absolutely amazing. But there's another question. But where is our day? What specific day were we created? Well, we are special. We get a job. But which day was ours again? You're telling me we don't get our own creation day? 6 days when the dry land animals were created, and we were created as well? The same day as the cattle and the animals of the land? The cows, the dogs? Well, maybe being made on the same day as the dogs isn't so bad, but cats? I have nothing against cats. Are you kidding? You might say, after listening to that, Father Andrew, you're hung up on the fact that we don't get our own day. Of course, this story isn't necessarily scientific, and we have to remember that. It's theological. It does have meaning, and this part of the story does intend to communicate a very clear message. You see, we are special, and we are given dominion over all in the world, but we are still creatures. God is creator. God can only bara, create. No one else has that ability. God is unlimited and independent and non-contingent. God exists outside of time. God is self-sufficient. God is not relying upon anyone or anything. We are creatures created by God. We are limited and dependent and contingent. We are mortal and finite. We have limitations and restrictions. We are not the cake baker. We are the cake. We need a creator, someone to have made us. In other words, God is creator and we are created. And there is a key point that this text is teaching us, and that's this. When things get out of whack in our lives, we often try to act like a creator. It's often because we try to control things. We often think we know what is best. We think if only people would do what I want them to do, and when I want them to do it, life would be so much better. Feeling out of control leads to worry, anxiety, stress. But that is not the role we are called to play. That's not our place. Our proper place in creation is, yes, over creation as blessed by God, but also under God. That is our proper place. And we need to let God be God and let us be creatures. With that in mind, we read the end of the creation story. And heaven and earth and all of the array were finished. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. God stops. He ceases after working and rests on the seventh day. Here, the Sabbath is created. This is quite interesting because this action introduces a theme that we'll see throughout the Bible, and an action that is repeated often in the Bible. It shows how God wants to be in relationship with us. He engages in a relationship with his people to demonstrate his commitment to the relationship. He makes covenants with his people. Covenant is a promise binding two parties together. It's unconditional, a promise, and it's nothing like a contract. And there were signs that accompanied the covenants throughout the Bible. And maybe you heard of some of these. In the story of Noah, there was the rainbow to show the covenant God made with Noah. God's sign to Moses was the Ten Commandments. And then the new covenant made through Jesus' blood was the sign. These covenant relationships are unconditional and unbreakable. Take a marriage, for instance. Vows are said, promises are made between a man and a woman and God. In sickness and in health, no matter what happens, each will hold up the other end of the bargain. The wedding ring is a sign of this covenant between man, a woman, and God. A symbol of the promise made, and it is worn to remind those participating in this covenant relationship. Our God is a covenant-making and covenant-keeping God. He keeps his promise. It's what he does. And here in Genesis 1, humanity is created to exist in relationship with God. It's our place. Within that relationship, a covenant is made. And the Sabbath is the sign of the covenant. The Sabbath is the wedding ring, the symbol. And just like wearing a wedding ring reminds a married couple to live in light of that covenant, the Sabbath is one way we live in light of our covenant with God. Sabbath is how we assume our proper place in creation. It's a reminder every 7 days to let God be God and for us to be creatures. So, what is Sabbath and how do we participate? Sabbath is a time of rest. Yes, work is good, but we're called not to work on the Sabbath. It is a day of the week that we don't work. No, it doesn't mean that we literally cease all that we are doing or stop all physical activity or to avoid everything, and that we can't drive cars or use electricity or so on. It's a day of delight and to enjoy things that we like to do. And your Sabbath could be spending time with family and friends, doing something that you like to do, taking a nap, going for a walk, reading a book. But the Sabbath is not just about rest, it's about the worship of God. So this is what we're invited to do from this story. We've been given the Sabbath, and we're invited to participate in it. Taking one day of the week to set aside for God to rest and to delight in him and to be thankful for all that he has done for us. If you think about it, Sabbath is a profound statement. When we structure our lives around Sabbath, we affirm that God is in control. Sabbath allows us to live in the freedom of knowing that the world doesn't revolve around you and me, but that God holds everything together. Sabbath is how we affirm that we are not abandoned, but that God is with us and for us. Sabbath is a declaration of a trust in God who is confident enough to rest, that we are safe in God's hands. I acknowledge that it is a hard one for us. We say it all the time, how busy we are. But truthfully, we are overcommitted and often stressed out. We are pulling for control, but the Sabbath is our answer. So here is your homework for the week. I want you to lean into the Sabbath and rest. Yes, it may seem impossible, but I encourage you to have a conversation about it. It can be accessible. Try it out for the next few weeks. Hey, summer is here, so try it out for the rest of this series, 6 more weeks. And I guarantee there's going to be a testimony of life change in the church of someone who embraces this. I also encourage you to read Genesis chapter 2 for next week. The Sabbath is a gift to us. This gift is a foreshadowing of heaven for us. Heaven is perfect, and in the creation story in Genesis chapter 1, creation ends in perfection. On the 7th day, there is total peace, total harmony. Everything is in its right place, and God rests. Sabbath is participating in that rest. God gives his people a time to rest. God wants us to be free from worry and stress and anxiety. That is the Sabbath. One day a week when we can be a people set free. A day to just experience heaven on earth. Everything has its right place. Our place is over creation, but under God. And the Sabbath is a weekly reminder of that.